Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Commissioner Brandon, did you do the invocation?
Everyone stand, please. This is a prayer for peace. With each kind thought, each choice for nonviolence, we plant a seed that shall bloom to bring forth rich fruit in its season. Together, friend, we till the soil and plant the seeds that all creation may sing for joy and dance in the garden of peace. May our prayers and practices during this season be but the beginning of a new culture of peace, security, and joy that shall endure unto our children's children's children. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
The traffic was pretty weird out there today.
Yes, it was, yes.
It's that
I
whole
agree.
traffic pattern.
I'll call the roll call.
Commissioner LeBlanc present.
Commissioner Brandhorst present.
Commissioner Gardner, President.
Commissioner Gleason present.
Commissioner Becker present?
Thank you. Do we have any citizen participation? Okay. Approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any additions, corrections, or deletions?
No.
Any changes?
Any changes? No.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Is
Commissioner
this
Becker?
After Wheels, or is this?
Oh, no, that's the next thing.
Okay. All in favor? Yes,
Aye.
okay. All right, and the consent agenda, we're moving number 5, the RFP bid for the helicopter part. We've got to move that down to new business, so we will hear from you then, Dana.
Pardon me?
Number 5 in the consent agenda, we're moving that to new business.
Number 4? Put it as number 4 in new business?
I thought we were going to,
Or we're doing that one first, or we're going to move it to number 4? I'm saying move it down to number 4 in new business.
oh, yes, yes. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as
Consent agenda
we have
as modified.
modified it.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed? Okay. Thank you. Unfinished business. Mrs. Myers?
All right, I'll read the resolution by title and then explain it. A resolution of the Anastasia Mosquito Control District relating to cost incurred for the construction and completion of the Disease Vector Education Center, making findings of fact, revising and ratifying DVEC project costs, providing for completion of the project and procedures and actions necessary to implement the said resolution, and providing an immediately effective date. This resolution looks backwards to bring us up to date as to how we got to this point, the costs and expenditures that have been made. I'll need someone to confirm if it's through May 20th and not the date of this meeting, and provides a not to exceed amount to complete the project in this fiscal year.
Hey, Amy, I'm having problems hearing you here.
It may depend on which direction I'm looking when I speak. Were you able to hear the title completely, or is my explanation I need to?
No, I think I heard the title is there.
The explanation. So it looks behind us to get us to where we are today from the start of the project to May 20th, and then it provides a looking forward not to exceed amount to complete the project in this fiscal year. It was authored, I provided the framework. The content was provided primarily by staff. Ms. Gleason reviewed and provided some footnotes to cite to the specific board meetings at which the actions recited were taken. But if you have any other questions, I do my best to answer them.
It is open for discussion. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Well, I'd like a few minutes to look through the new one that we have here.
The only thing that changed was this number here.
Yeah.
The Herald number, because it was not right, that number wasn't right, the 459. It was, I think it was a lower number on the one that
We
That was
didn't even
emailed.
have that on this one.
Did we email it?
I'm sorry?
Did we email the resolution? I thought we
The new
emailed the
resolution?
resolution to the board.
No, we set it out on the table and we posted it on the website.
We should, from now on, we should email it because now everybody has to read it. And
So this one was only one page, this one is several pages, so we're just adding in like the things that we've previously done, so it's on the record, and when someone says, did we do this, we have a piece of paper that says
Yes.
yes.
So if the version you have in your package that you reviewed is 4 paragraphs long, the one that is on the table before you that we are presenting is bigger, several more pages long. It has a findings of fact section that sort of recites, you bid the project, you terminated Compass, you directed staff to go and finish and complete the project. You've spent this much trying to complete the project as of May 20th. In a later section, you will set forth the not to exceed amount in which to finish the project. That number is $356,571.39. The completion date is September 30th of this fiscal year. It requests that the director bring back to the board any new vendor quote that individually exceeds or in the aggregate is expected to exceed $35,000 in accordance with your purchasing policies. And it sets forth the specific actions that the chairman, the director, the business manager, and the district attorney may take with regard to contracts, purchase orders, and completion of paperwork necessary to complete this project.
And it actually summarizes the total
Yes.
for the project, so that there's no more questions about what the number is.
Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Becker?
She's still reading.
Oh, I'm still reading.
Okay. Seems he's not here.
So, come back to it when he gets there. I need to do that.
And do we need to put anything in here for, because I know one of the issues has been with our contracts. With all the contracts that we don't have, we're doing by, by piece basically, because everything just has to be.
So
negotiated.
you're
So
fine-
do we need to write that anywhere?
So your findings of facts do acknowledge that you have spent X amount of money needed to complete it to other than Compass and a total amount. It does not direct any retroactive preparation of contracts.
No, I mean, do we need to state that with our current set designers, that we don't have like specific contracts, that we pay piece by piece kind of thing? That was something Commissioner Gleason has brought up a lot.
Yeah, I met with staff. I believe that where we are now, we can't undo what was, so that 902 that's in the table covers all that. And when we updated the new scope of work, which was already completed, and then the next one is the 356, which was the two combined thing that the board approved last month. We felt that in providing a total cap on the spending, that covers that. So it puts like, this is right, Amy, it just says, here's the number, we know what already occurred, whether, it was, we're not gonna discuss whether it was miscommunication or whatever, we're just gonna acknowledge that it happened, and that we are
Moving on.
moving on and putting basically a hard number on the project. And anything above and beyond that has to come back to this board.
Ms. Becker, you can. This is, I mean,
But you
this
can
is-
do
this
that.
is the commissioner's resolution, so you can do whatever you want to in it. And in fact, the very first draft of this resolution set out a line item for each vendor and how much you have paid to really ratify and make transparent those costs. That was a really overwhelming effort, given the number of vendors that are attached to this project. And so ultimately, we've just come to this 1902 number. It is more simple and easier to understand.
Right.
And was a more efficient product to get to you.
And do we need to include anything about the drainage field? I know that we tabled that in our discussion about when we connected it to the other building, but at some point, we do have to fix that. So do we need to add anything to this about the leaking?
Are you
or-
saying that has to do with that building? I thought-
So I would ask,
It affects that.
if it is, now, I don't know enough about your project and the drainage field. I don't believe that staff intends this not to exceed number to include that drainage
No,
field.
it did not.
So if that is clear to everyone here, either adding a statement that this 356 is exclusive of any stormwater drainage issues that need to be corrected there, you do need to say that.
That was a separate,
If that is a separate project,
If
and
we
that's
want to
everyone's
keep it separate,
understanding.
yeah, that's fine for me, but I want all of us to be on the same page so we know what's going on for whatever, when the board next year asks. So we're gonna do this, and the drainage thing is something completely separate,
it's in the next year's.
and it's in the next year's budget, so is every board member good with that?
I mean, I didn't even
Keeping
know that the drainage,
separate.
yeah, I didn't
Separate,
know that
that's
the
fine.
drainage issues had been caused by the museum. I thought we had a drainage issue.
Well,
But
we
they're
don't
not-
have a
It's not caused
museum,
by this, but it's affecting the museum.
Okay,
education center, not museum.
well, it's
Um,
easier.
But
I have a question.
yes, the flooding went into the building
Okay.
because Compass didn't line it up correctly. So that, I just want to make sure that, because if something happens and we need to pay an emergency fund, I don't want anyone going, we only had 300,
Right.
I think we
30,
have-
and we can't do it.
I
Sorry.
think we have it covered as a separate project for
Okay.
next year's budget.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner.
So on the second page, it says the AMCD Board of Commissioners further requests district's director to bring to the board for approval any DVEC new vendor quote that individually exceeds or in aggregate is expected to exceed $35,000 in spending based on the district purchase policy. So my question is, this is the in aggregate of 35. I think that may delay, put a lot of delay on the, and getting the DVEC done, because you have a lot of intricate, there's a lot of different vendors for the exhibits within the museum.
This is for new vendors, not for the ones that are already engaged in the project.
Right. but there's additional things to be done, and there may be
understand.
multiple vendors, right?
My understanding was from staff when we met that there weren't going to be any and that they were okay with this. I mean, we met on the 3rd and staff was in the room and they didn't have a problem with that, so.
I'm just trying to figure out if, like, my only concern is that it might really delay things.
See, the problem is, and I hear your concern, but here's the problem. We have a policy that says 35,000, not to exceed 35,000 without going to the board. We have a responsibility to, and I know what's happened and I just want to move on from what happened. We have a responsibility to taxpayers of this county, and the last thing we want to do is that we end up with multiple small contracts, and when we look at a vendor in aggregate, and we have one right now that's at 380,000, that somebody says, wait a minute, you guys didn't have any idea about this? I don't want to have that misconception going forward. And then I did ask, oh, Scott's here. Scott was in the room, Whitney was in the room, and you guys didn't feel like that part of the language was onerous going forward, given the fact that we're so close to finishing up the project. Correct? I don't want to speak for you.
Yeah, I wanted to hear from the staff, I guess, too. It's okay? Okay.
I mean, that would be a deal breaker for me because I wasn't around when any of this happened. And I'm trying really hard to get to a point that we can get this behind us. And I have to sleep at night. So that, and then the other thing that you mentioned, the individual, I can't ratify what I wasn't around to do, but I can ratify a total number.
Going forward.
Yeah, I can say, this is the number that we are at. It is what it is.
So Dr. Shu, or would you say that, for Commissioner LeBlanc is concerned that if we say 35,000 and say we get a new vendor in 3 weeks and it's 36,000, then we'd have to wait another month, so that would put us behind. Do you see that as an issue of having any new vendors, or?
I think it's single any issue should be fine, yeah, because we do everything according policy, which the policy, yeah, it was 35, read back to the board. I think it's-
Well, I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I think Commissioner LeBlanc saying like, that's a whole month.
Well,
You would have to wait.
maybe 90% finish, only 10% left. I don't think
So you don't think that'll be an
So
issue?
nothing that'll be big enough.
Such
Okay.
a amount.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
it
you
won't be
guys
an
are
issue?
operational already, so.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Did you want me to say it, or?
I-
Yes.
Is there, yeah.
I-
Do you have
I get-
something to add?
Oh, no, I guess I just, for clarity, I guess, the not to exceed 35,000, that's only new vendors from what we understood. So the ones that are in motion won't be included in that. I think the probability is low that you'd have any new vendor come up, they would hit the 35,000 mark, because I've been discussing with Mr. Weaver and Dr. Shu. We've got about 294,000 left. We're watching that number. After the humidifier was 310, and there's about 294 left. And with the other vendors, artistic contractors, creative, graphic design, Epic Made, Fake Ulrich, and Lindell Design, I don't see any room where a new vendor would come in there and hit anything close to 35,000. The probability seems really low, and we are watching everything.
Yeah, that's where the drainage issue came up for me, because I thought, well, what if?
Can I ask Scott one question? I do have one question that doesn't impact this. The vendors that you guys use to finish up, do we have any warranties or guarantees with them, like on their work? Do you know?
I think by law, there's the Uniform Commercial Code of the United States creates every vendor to have some kind of warranty. That's under the UCC code.
But
So
do
I
we-
think they
do you
have
know-
to have
do
a
you-
warranty.
yeah, Do you know if we have like anything in file? That's all I'm asking.
Um,
Just to make sure if something were to get defective, that we're not paying again within a certain period of time.
I guess what it comes down to is if you have a vendor that doesn't perform correctly and they breach a contract or do subpar work, we'd have to be willing to go after them. Like, I feel like the Compass is that vendor that did that. There's been a lot of reworking on things, of things the Compass should have done, and they had warranties. And by law, there's warranties that should be in place for the kind of work that they were doing, but we opted not to pursue any action against them. We could look at them, I mean, I could just
No,
talk.
it was just a question, because I usually, you would get that with a contract, but many of these don't have contracts, so.
By their licenses and everything that they would have to qualify to do the work, which we screened, they would have warranties built in with just their natural licenses and the law and things like that, to the
Okay.
best of my knowledge.
That's all I have.
Does anyone else have questions or comments? Do we have public comments going forward about this topic before we vote?
Can we just, since the public doesn't have a copy of this in front of them, just let you know that the total budget now stands at, and the cap on this project is at $4,435,057.12. Just because you guys don't have it in front of you. And can we make that a change in the future, that we can make copies available to the public when they're in the room?
Yeah, there's a public board book up there.
Okay.
And I put a updated copy in there.
Okay,
For them to look at.
thanks.
Yes,
Any
ma'am.
of them can take it.
We could run copies before the end of the meeting if you want.
And I do want to say thank you, Scott,
Sure, thank you.
Dr. Paul, Shu, Amy, for all their hard work.
Thank you for your hard work, because you did the heavy lifting on this, and I know sometimes you felt not appreciated, but it took a lot of courage, and you did a
Honestly,
good job.
there was always good intent.
I believe that, yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Do we have a motion to accept the referendum?
A motion that we ratify, how do I have to read the whole thing?
No, you can just say motion, motion to approve.
I make a
been read
motion
by
to
title.
approve the resolution.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Brandhorst, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Hannah.
Good evening. Just going over the treasurer's report, which includes the reconciliation banks for the end of May for this June meeting.
Hey, Scott, can you raise that? I
Oh,
can't.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
Okay. So before you, you have the treasurer's report. And then just going from top down, you've got the regular Wells Fargo operating account, $1,475,031.73. The sweep investment account, that's at approximately $4.7 million. The SBA investment account is $5.8 million. That sweep account will reduce once we start spending more of the regular operating funds. Because you have two Wells Fargo accounts, the regular Wells Fargo account will start feeding into the sweep account as it gets below once it starts going below 1.5 million. The 1.475 you see, that's actually the register balance, but the bank balance, it stays at 1.5. So then the next thing, you've got the SBA at 5.8, and Bank of America, which is an extra bill paying account, that's 162,270. Going down further, the return on investment, the Florida Prime, annualized at 5.52%. We have a return on investment for 1 month at 27,123.54. And the Wells Fargo sweep account, with a slightly less return on investment as annualized, is 5.18%, and that's 22,938.50. Grant money for the month is $30,930.48. I can provide more detail about that later if anybody wants. Usually I try to put it in the margin, somehow it didn't go in there.
If you can just send me that
Sure,
email.
I can email it to you. Miscellaneous other, usually it's salvage, like metal, salvage, things like that, small items, $455.54. Dormitory rent, $800. And DVEC center concessions, which is like soda and honey sales and any of the retail items selling, it's $539.52.
Is that the net?
That's actually the gross. Yeah.
So if you net it out, what, is it just a wash? Where's the expense showing up?
Cost of goods sold, from what I understand, I think the margin is like 40%. Say you sell something for $1,
Okay.
we're paying 40 cents on the
So-
dollar.
So it's 40% of this number?
Yeah, but then that's, the honey, we make less on that, that's consigned to us, we don't pay unless we sell it.
Mhm.
And to my knowledge, there hasn't been any shrinkage on it. If there
Nobody's-
is, then.
Nobody's walked out with
Nobody's
it?
walked out with any honey, to the best of my knowledge. And yeah, so that's the gross right there. And then right below, you do have the year-to-date DBEC Center operations, which has the revenue. Right now, it's just the concession sales.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
The education center, is it the director? Is it, I forget, what's her title? I forget her title. Is that, where's her salary?
I'm sorry?
Where's her salary? The director, the coordinator?
Oh,
Where's her
okay.
salary? Because it should be shown here.
That's true. Okay, that's a good
And it should be
point.
offset by whatever money, like a grant money, whatever that we're getting for that. So there should be a
Okay.
line.
Good point. We're still kind of formulating, because this is new to us. You're right. I should, Gen C and any of the interns that are helping, we should put that in there. I'll start doing that.
Are we doing benefits with her? So the grant covers part of the salary, but not the benefits, right?
Probably just they get the CDC conform, people money. We do people,
Okay.
so when you get that, maybe hopefully next week we'll get it.
Okay, so
You are now.
going forward, you should have salary and
Yep.
benefits, and then the offset
Yep.
on the income would be whatever the grant money is
There's-
for that, to cover that,
Yep, that's
in the revenue
correct.
section,
Good-
or in the
good
income
catch.
section.
Yeah, I'll start including that in the report. It might eventually become a separate page next to the treasurer's report. It might not be able to fit underneath there. And that's it for the treasurer's report. Then have the budget amendment. And that actually reflects the $356,571 for the, to complete the DBEC Center. Probably the second page, it's a little more complex, but the first page, you have the DAX form, and then the next one, you have the detail. If you look at this page, it's got where the money came from. So the first 82,000 came out of revenue that we had an excess of. We had excessive revenues above budget, and that's the 82,787.58. So we pulled the first 82,000 of the DBEC budget amendment out of that amount. Then everything else came out of contingency, which is 283,328.18. We've got 11% contingency every year. That's 11% of the budget. And so let me see what the contingency was. Before this budget amendment, it's 808,558. That's what was left in contingency. Taking that 283,328 left us a contingency of 525,230.
Okay.
And most likely we won't even probably use any more of that this budget year. And that's it for the budget amendment. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Becker?
Just because I saw the SIP thing, did we ever get the sinks yet?
Not yet.
When are those coming?
I'm sorry, get the
When are the
what?
sinks?
The sinks that we're still waiting on?
The SIP building.
The SIP
Oh,
building?
no, not yet, yeah.
Complete in the place, next couple weeks. He said.
But
Yes,
do
it is.
you have a company yet?
Yeah, this is still early, yeah.
We can't do anything until that comes out, right?
Yeah, no water connection.
Wow. How many
Okay.
months?
Oh, 6 months
Yeah.
already.
We need to
All
get them to
Thank you,
move.
Sam.
Thank
we need to
you.
get them to move that along.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the arthropod control budget amendment and send it to the state as presented.
All right.
Thank
Do
you.
you have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner LeBlanc?
Oh, sorry. Had a long day.
Is that an aye? Okay. Thank you. All right. The, under new business, who wants to talk about the Washington trip?
Well, I can start.
All right.
So we went to DC for the American Mosquito Control Association annual lobby days and with our senators and congressmen. It was interesting like last year, and I think it's valuable. But here's just commentary. This is nothing negative. I honestly think that going forward, the best people to represent at the annual AMCA in DC would be the director and the assistant director, because I personally believe that commissioners can be doing the outreach to their representatives while they're here. We can schedule appointments, and I think we will have a better shot at meeting with them personally than going to DC and every year meet with one, and then everybody else we're meeting with staff. That's just my personal opinion. It's not about the cost, it's really about the effectiveness of the board. I think it is our responsibility to build relationships with all our legislators, and it just doesn't happen once a year in DC. Other than that, we had a good reception.
Well, we have a policy that only the chair can talk to the people, so that's why.
No, but I'm saying that we don't have to say we can go with a director or somebody. They all have office hours in the state when they're here. So we can even appoint one person. It doesn't have, the board can vote on that. I'm just saying that taking a bunch of us, we had the biggest contingency, I felt, of all the districts nationally there. And we met with one, House rep, and then the senators, even though we met with staff and it was very valuable, it was, it didn't have the same, for me, it didn't have the same impact. And I think it might be maybe one commissioner. I think it's just overkill that 3 of us went. And I actually don't have to go next year. I would probably beg off. But it was just my opinion because I think the discussions were good. I think the folks that we met with get it. They know it's a public health issue. The issue is not whether they have an understanding of it or not. It's really about what happens in appropriations at the federal level. And, we can talk to the cows come home, but that's not going to change it because we probably, in all their priorities, are probably not the top. So I think that, in my perspective, that's something that's better left to AMCA and their lobbyists. That's all I have. But it was a good trip.
It was. Commissioner Becker, do you have anything to add?
You were all over the place. So.
She's always she tells our story better than
So
she
you
does.
see, like, you was telling me the story. I think you met with other groups that, like, you met with
Yeah.
CDC and stuff like that. So.
Well, I met with the CDC, I met with the head of appropriations request for the majority side. I also met with the head director of the minority side, and about 9 different senators and congressional members in person, not their staff. So that was really good. I think this was the best year we've had so far. And everyone that we spoke with was on board with the things that we were talking about. We did have issues with Senator Scott and the drones.
Don't talk about drones,
we
you
just-
just told, don't talk about
Right.
drones.
So for the public that doesn't know, there's the policy pass, so anyone that has drones in mosquito control and police or in fire can't use their drone if it has any pieces or products that come from China on it. So we have many millions of dollars across Florida and across other states of drones that are just sitting in the hangars not being able to be used. And so that's part of the thing we talked about with the senators. And some of them understood where we were coming from as a national organization, and that if we pick one company that's been vetted and et cetera. So that was kind of 50-50, but it's a election year, so I guess that's.
But just what
to
FYI,
say.
Senator Scott is working on that bill to see if they can incent American companies to build the drones.
Yes.
So that doesn't solve the issue we have right now, but at least they recognize it's an issue.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Smolorov?
May I say something?
Yes?
He was there too.
DC.
He was there too.
Couple sentences.
You guys
Yeah,
also
I
went
mean,
to
they-
Walter Reed.
Yes?
Oh, that's right, we went to Walter Reed.
Yeah, and as the president of American Mosquito Control Association this year, really thank you, appreciate our board commissioner support, lobby. Before didn't think about lobby, now they're more and more interested. I received email, the CDC give $430,000 increases for the training. Also, other things that they get funding. At least the Congress has given the cut budget. So CDC requests a 10% increase, and everything seems on the budget. Also build a new database, and the California leaders is the same on the budget, didn't cut anything. Really thank you, appreciate, and our board support, so that's the move for all, beneficial for
Okay, the
everyone.
red
Thank
light
you.
has
And that was
been
one
on.
Thank
thing
you,
that
Dr.
having the commissioners there really
Yeah.
made an impact, because
Yeah, in elected
those-
office, you're talking totally different with us.
Right.
The red light
Sure.
hasn't gone
like
out
when I
yet.
talked to Senator Manchin, like, they knew how many votes we had to get into office. So they're really paying attention to what we say, because we do have a lot of people that we are getting voted in by. So if we're supposed to be an expert in our fields, they really, were interested in what we said. And this software is gonna help everyone across the United States. So the faster we can implement it, people can know within seconds, something's happening, there's an outbreak, and take precautionary measures. So, yeah, that was very good. Excellent.
Great. Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So good evening. My name is Stephen Smoloroff. I am the field biologist here at Anastasia Mosquito Control District. I'll be giving an overview of our surveillance methods and techniques here at the district.
Could you speak up?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yes, sorry.
I think you can lift this, because I think is that one liftable?
I don't think that one was.
I can just speak closer.
He can yell.
So who am I? So I know some of you commissioners throughout the years, but some of you may not know me quite yet. So like, as I stated, I'm the field biologist within our surveillance department and underneath our science team. So I've worked within almost every department here at the district. So I'd like to consider myself kind of the Swiss Army knife, so to speak. So just a few of my responsibilities and that I oversee every week are adult mosquito identification. I'm a sentinel chicken phlebotomist. I oversee our entire operations trapping program. I oversee our Gambusia fish program. I am part of overseeing some of our salt marsh management surveillance, as well as I oversee, some of the interns throughout the season within our science department as a whole. So part of my background, I received my Bachelor of Science in Interdisciplinary Studies from the University of Central Florida in 2014. Following that, I received my Master of Public Health from the University of North Florida in 2017. And during my time in my graduate program, I did complete a 6-month internship here at AMCD from March to September of 2017. Following that, I did accept the starting position of mosquito technician in October of that year. And then I've been able to move up since then. So I was a field biologist from 2019 until just September of last year. And then I accepted the promotion to the field biologist from October of last year until currently. So why do we need surveillance as a district and for mosquito control? So operational surveillance is separate from our arborvirus surveillance program to a degree. So just to kind of get an idea of that. So the arborvirus surveillance program is overseen by Dr. Steve Pepper and then Eddie Zizeko, our molecular technician. The arborvirus surveillance program started in summer of 2020 with Steve Pepper. And even though they're somewhat separate, we of course still collaborate together when it comes to treatment efforts for, operationally between our surveillance and our arborvirus surveillance programs. So continuing the need of surveillance would be for, of course, to monitor mosquito populations, mosquito-borne diseases, and environmental factors that influence the mosquito populations. So our data collected from trapping is used to determine and justify treatments by our aerial and ground field operations teams. And the treatments carried out are primarily targeted out to our vector species. However, there's the exception of our major floodwater and salt marsh habitat hatch-offs. And then through all these surveillance methods, the treatments are guided through the Center of Disease Control, or CDC, light traps, as well as our Biogen's BG Sentinel-2 traps. So some of the methods of surveillance are, as I stated, the CDC light traps and our BGS traps. They're deployed seasonally from spring to fall, roughly from April to November, and they are set for a 24-hour period weekly. And it's roughly 28 to 32 weeks of trapping throughout the season from typically until October or November. So our BG traps are baited with BG lure and dry ice, while our CDC light traps are baited with octanol lure and an LED light source. So from just some brief history of our trapping program, from 2016 to 2018, we had 32 light traps placed around the county. And then in 2019, we did add, we added an additional 9 traps for a total of 41. And this was, this increase was due to the population increase in our county, which has roughly gone up 100,000 people in the last decade. And this was to better represent the county for trap placement, as well as the habitats have been dissolved and shifted as our county has grown population-wise. And then for this season, we switched gears a little bit. So we have 26 light traps and 15 BG traps that are integrated. So,
Can I ask you a question?
yes, ma'am.
Do you think we have enough coverage now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I apologize. I do have a picture that will show our distribution around the county as well.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. So the shift for this season was to better representation of the species diversity, more specifically along our coastal areas. So on the East Coast, more towards the beach, and then towards the rest, closer to the St. Johns River. So this was for better justification of treatments around the county, so that it better correlates with our service requests, landing rates, and whatnot. So, yes.
Commissioner.
Before we leave the surveillance, for our upcoming budget talks, when you had on there that it was
The previous one?
October and November on the second one for the
Correct.
trapping. Last year in December, we had like a pretty good outbreak. Do you think that we need to add an extra month of trapping? And if so, do we need to add money to the upcoming budget for that?
So that's just kind of more of a, like an average month that every year is different. So every year, for example, even our Sentinel Chicken program will extend it. Every year could be extended by a few weeks or a month. It depends on the activity of arborvirus surveillance, as well as populations that we're seeing. So that's just kind of a general average since I've been here that we've started and ended the trapping program. So every year is different, and we assess it every season. Like I said, it will extend trapping and our Sentinel Chicken program. And your other question was if we have enough funding, was that correct?
Do you guys have enough budget for all the trapping, or do you think we're gonna need to up the budget?
No, ma'am. We have plenty of traps, and that's another part that I'll get to is the some of the maintenance that I go through with my traps. That we have plenty of traps, plenty of parts, and whatnot. So thank you. So the continued methods for surveillance are just to get an overview weekly, we have 41 operational traps. That includes our CDC and BG traps. We have 10 to 20 arborvirus traps. We have 4 salt marsh. We have currently 18 pre-trapping BGs for our SIT program. That will increase to 36 traps starting next month. And then we can have anywhere between 4 to 24 semi-field screening closure traps. So in our 3 screening closures, depending on what's going on in the week, we can have anywhere between 4 to 24. So just in a weekly rotation, we can have anywhere between 70 to 130 traps in rotation in a week. Yes.
So the SIT traps, and I know this is going to sound like a silly question, but given the fact that we don't have the sinks, does that impact at all how
So-
many traps for SIT we do right now?
Stephen, can I,
Yes. Go ahead.
do you, so in the budget this year are requested are additional traps, and that is primarily for the SIT monitoring. They can be used for any type of monitoring where you can rotate them in. So for our main operational surveillance, both arbovirus and population were good, but for SIT, we would need some additional traps. Those are in your budget. Yeah, so they may be referencing what the BG counter traps.
Right.
Yeah.
And I did actually hit on that towards the end about,
Okay.
but
Yeah, we're getting ahead of you.
no, it's okay. So with that being said, each of these traps has a battery. So there's a lot of maintenance and upkeep between the charging battery rotation, the maintenance of the trap. Each trap has a motor. Half of them have an attractant light bulb. You know, there's coolers, there's a fan motor. So there's a lot of behind the scenes that goes along with, you know, surveillance with, you know, trapping and maintenance and whatnot. So, so just to get an idea of kind of, I apologize, this pictures are very small, but these are some of our trap placements for the light traps out in the field. So these are the ones that are baited with an octanol lure, and they have an LED light source as the attractant. And then these are our BGS traps. And so this trap is a basic design of what's going to be integrated into our SIT program.
You mean the one on the right?
Correct. Oh, yes. And then the trap on the left is an OV cup. It's a OV position cup, and that is for those correlate with our BG traps, and those are for primarily for 80 surveillance. So a female mosquito will lay eggs on that paper, and that's what we collect, and we can count the eggs. And then this is an image of our operational trap distribution. So the yellow dots are the CDC light traps, and the white dots are the BG traps. So this year we have an even better distribution, as I stated, about the types of traps we're using and in correlation with the habitat. So we're really excited with, you know, with integrating BGs into our operational traps this year.
Is there any coordination with the county in terms of the developments, like where they're going? Like development that has been approved and where those developments are going, and then what our future needs are going to be based on where new residential housing is going and so forth? Like right now, if I look at this map, how's that map likely to look like when there's a lot of projects that have been approved? Like, what's that going to look like next year? And I mean, are you guys looking at it prospectively as what's the growth rate going to be in our trapping capacity and surveillance program?
So we do overview all of our traps every year. We go through, we go to each individual site and look at, you know, if there's been new development, new construction, if, you know, I mean, simple things like, you know, resident may not even want their trap there anymore. So we do review each of these traps every season.
And I'm just thinking, are we looking at the master plan that just got approved and how that's likely to change?
So all of our traps are around residential areas, so we're not putting them out prior to those residential developments being established, but even as they're going in, for example, Silverleaf area, we've already incorporated more traps in that area to be representative, but because we're using that information for operational control, we're not gonna do it prior to, just because people aren't there yet,
No,
right?
No, I'm just thinking, like, planning, like future planning, like, I think the master plan just got approved.
Yeah.
Like, how is that likely to impact us, not this year for operationally, but
Right.
like getting ahead of it versus being reactive to it? It's more like, okay, what's that likely to do? Because we're gonna be doing millage recommendations, and it would be nice to know, like, okay, when do we have to like consider growth rate?
Increasing. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly something that we can discuss amongst the team. Like Stephen mentioned, that's something that we're kind of doing at the beginning of each season to kind of be prepared for that season. But we have a good connection now with the county, the GIS program. So there are a lot of potential collaborations there that we can work with, even like retention ponds, better understanding what's going in and whether or not they're going to have fountains or bubblers. That's something that this program is also working on, is identifying. So I think it'll help us. But yeah, so we're kind of in tune with that. We're not necessarily planning out 5 years ahead, but maybe as
So
the
they're
next.
talking to us.
Yes.
Am I thinking
Yeah.
wrong?
I apologize, my contact.
Ooh, okay, that's nice.
So when the traps,
That's a nice chart.
um,
Uh-oh.
so when the traps come in, so what do we do with, the collection specimens? So they are, we physically ID them, and they are handwritten on these ID sheets, and these are, they're sent out via email to, the whole, all staff, and this is where it's, decided upon management based on, trapping numbers for treatment efforts. And then of course, this is all put in our database as well, so.
We get that copy in our book every month.
Right.
Yes.
So just some rough idea of our trapping numbers the last few years from top to bottom, 2023 down to 2016. So part of why we wanted to, or additionally why we wanted to increase our trapping numbers and then adjust their habitats, our numbers haven't really correlated with our landing rates and with our service requests the last few years. And a lot of that is because of the habitat changes in the development in our county. So kind of our rule of thumb is we like to place the traps where people are, not directly in the woods. We know we're going to get traps direct, or we know we're going to get populations and high counts directly in the woods. So, and then we've also been very dry the last few years, which we've been very fortunate about. So again, we are wanting to really try and correlate our trapping populations with our landing rates and our service requests. So that's another reason why we really wanted to hone in on updating these sites. So continuing for our trapping, the months of June, August, and October, we have historically in the last 8 years seen the highest trap counts. And then for our hydrologic conditions, which I pull from the St. Johns County River Water Management District, last year we saw a little bit more rainfall than we have the last few years. But historically, we see roughly 53 inches annually. So some of the challenges that we face every year with just all of our trapping programs are, of course, environmental factors, trapping malfunctions, access to private properties, predators of mosquitoes, other trap interferences, such as the shepherd's hooks get stolen, coolers, cups, batteries get stolen, they get tipped over, animals. So.
How often does that happen that the things get taken?
The beginning of the season has been a little bit of a challenge. So it comes with the territory, so we're prepared for it. So it never becomes an issue we can't solve. And then, so another part of our surveillance that we do is larval dipping. And this is conducted through our operations team as well as salt marsh management, which encompasses our science and aviation teams. So larval dipping is one of the first stages of surveillance, and this helps to determine larval treatment efforts. And we survey for the different stages of larvae, first through fourth and pupae. And the different instar stages dictate the type of pesticide and when to use it. And this is specifically important when it comes to salt marsh species, which are very time sensitive as far as their development out in their habitats. And so to the future and beyond, so our OV paper collection used to be with some older trapping that we have, and this is going to switch to our SIT program, which it already currently has. So these are the OV position traps that we can collect 80s eggs, and this is going to be, like I said, integrated along with the trapping for the SIT program. And we have many partners and collaborators that we currently and have used in the past between academia and industry that use these OV papers. And they take the papers and they're actually able to rear their own local colonies with them. So it is an important method of surveillance that we continue. And as Dr. Qualls was stating, so for our SIT trapping program, we are doing pre-trapping right now for, pre-treatment and release trapping right now to get an idea of our, local populations before we release. So these are going to be BG counter traps, and we've purchased them through Clark. So we currently have 18 sites. They will, like as I stated, they will grow to 36 sites next month, and that will be through the peak season. So these traps are the next-gen mosquito surveillance for female monitoring, or for remote monitoring, I apologize. So they differentiate between insects, and they can count 3 different sizes. So it's an AI system, and it wirely transmits to a cloud server. I should have included a picture, so I apologize.
This is not the one I saw. That one.
We have BG counters set up. They've been in the screen enclosures, but I'm not sure. if
The
you've
one
seen-
that they were, I forget the university, John, it was John.
No. That's a different, that's
That's
Scout,
one.
the Scout prototype.
Yeah, I was looking at this, that's the one that was showing, that takes the picture and it can identify.
Correct, it's not
That's
there
not the one.
yet.
Okay,
Right.
that's not that one.
Yeah, these will not speciate. They will just
Okay.
differentiate between a mosquito and other flying insects. And the benefit of this setup is they're going to have solar panels, so they will be able to continuously charge the batteries. So we should only have to go out once or twice every week or every 2 weeks.
What's the impact if they get damaged or stolen or?
There's going to be a lot of
It's
learning
sensor,
curves
right?
and R&D with these. There's other districts that have integrated these traps. So we're already coming up with ideas of how to
Protect.
house these and protect them out in the field. So these are going to be integral for the daily activity patterns of mosquitoes, for population dynamics, and the effectiveness of adult control SIT releases. So I want to thank you to the whole AMCD team, and as well as continued support from the commissioners.
Thank you.
Does anyone have questions? Commissioner?
Could you tell them how you collect the traps, just so for anyone that hasn't seen it? Like you collect the trap and then you bring them here, and what do you do?
Sure.
I mean, I know what you do, but.
So we have many teams depending on the traps, in the week. So we collect the trap, we bring them back. Each one has to be, set up, I'm trying to figure out how to explain. So, I mean, when they come back, they're placed back in the trap room, and then we ID them.
And how
I
do you
guess-
do that?
Well, under a microscope, of course. So each
The
individual.
big thing I'm trying to say,
sorry, I
they
guess I was-
have to hand
Oh,
count
sure,
with
right.
tweezers every
Correct.
single
So-
mosquito. So they have to say what
Each-
sex it is, what type it is, they have to hand,
Correct.
this is
I
very labor-intensive work that probably feels like you guys are doing this all for nothing, but it makes a huge deal, and thank you very much
Sure.
for the whole team for doing that. Because
Thank you.
that's,
You're welcome.
I've seen
you
them
know,
do that.
with the tweezers one by one, I mean, that is really tedious work, but it's really important, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is discussion about the proposed draft budget. Mrs. Mueller, would you like to do your public comments first?
Judy Muller. I just have, I tried to peruse the budget, the proposed budget. And when we started the sit lab, the completion date was supposed to be somewhere around February of '22. And it's my understanding that we have been waiting on parts and pieces for forever. There are lots of research people out there that make items for us. Have we tried to get that stainless steel sink from anywhere else? Because the sit lab, in my humble opinion, is extremely important, not only to our district, but to the state as a whole. And this sit lab can bring in money and grants as opposed to other parts. So it'd be really nice if we could figure out how to get it done, because I pushed for that. And I just want to see it through, and that's the only reason I'm here for the night.
May I say? Thank you.
Absolutely, yes, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Yeah. First, the her construction, all the contract with one already sink. After 3-4 months, they totally lost. That the company seems to close or out of business, they can do it. Then second, start another new company supply the sink. So the sink almost 2.5 months. So the every calling yesterday, we call it again, check it again. And so it should be next couple of weeks, should be all right. Because especially they're all made for the sink, different with the general sink. Specific amount made. So there also, I asked Harry, the owner, president will be July, coming with the report, give update what's going on. So not only sink, currently we have a cool room, just to get accounting proof and permission to start can work next after holiday, July 4th.
And can we start any research in the sit lab before the cold room is completed?
Yeah, they have a schedule for 3 months finish, just get a permit from accounting to get a permit. And also everything people work took time, yeah, more than we thought, the permission and everything. Yeah.
It always takes the county longer to do anything than it ought to. I mean, that's been historic in all my 16 years of being on this board. It has always taken the county or the fire department longer to approve something than it really needed to.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Push the,
So-
we'll be here talking today.
So my last question here, because it looks like I have about 5 seconds.
Actually,
And-
you're over, but because it's you, you can talk.
Since it's me, I can talk.
Yes.
I'm just very interested in finishing this because I pushed for it to be built. And I think eventually this sit lab will change worldwide, not necessarily ours, but other sit labs will change the way worldwide that mosquito control is going to be handled for control, which will definitely help protect our non-targets, as well as not putting so many chemicals out into the environment. And since we have the certified lab, we certainly will be able to charge other districts money to do any research and eventually do more than just the Aedes mosquitoes. So what I'm hearing from you, Dr. Shu, is that in the next 3 to 4 months, this sit lab should be completed and staff can begin to work on research. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, we hope, yeah. It's on schedule.
On schedule. Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, our W2 TDR, the training workshop, interesting. Ask, can we training the people, scientists from a Caribbean country for SAT? Also, you may join the CDC round the table meeting. So the director asked, what's going on? Your SAT you started produce already? Not yet. If he started producing, he want to come to here, basically looking for cooperation for West Nile virus vector control.
Good. All right. Do you have draft budget discussion?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's based on every year the budget calendar. So we start distributed in April, March, April. We collect the need list from each department here and in whole year. And then we, the Department of Accounting and the CFO Scott Hunter and and put it together and separate. So that's the May 30, we deliver the proposal draft the budget book. So give you time to look at. So that's the just first draft. Lots of questions still need discussion. And also today, we would like to get for member input, what you want to see, and in next budget year, what you have question and anything you can suggestion. This is just first the draft, yeah. We have a staff meeting last week, we discussion whether something little bit change. So that's why that, we still have 3 months going to finally public hearing, budget adopted. So anytime, and the board member, you have questions, you have suggestions, just let me and Scott know, we can make a change. Then we have to update our draft for July 11 board meeting. You know, that's need to set up a Medicaid rate based on budget, based on need. Also today we scheduled a financial committee meeting with the chairperson. So the purpose of we were discussing and review our reserve money and financial situation. Also look at the DER 420 from accounting property appraiser officer. We should receive June 28. Usually it's the last day June. So then we'll have a review what's the tax value for the value for next year. Then we can put it together, give some recommendation to the board for July 11 board meeting to set up a tentative Medicaid rate. That's basically, today's just doesn't need a vote, doesn't need just open import, question and what you want to see. That's the opportunity public meeting can also from a public who want to see what's improved, what's in need. Well, just listening to that. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Do you have a question?
I'm just putting it back.
Okay, so Scott, quick question, I don't know if either of you, the 47 billion, let's say, 47 billion tax base we have here, that's not we haven't got the new one from the county yet.
That's correct. We get it about the end of June. It'll probably be like the last Friday, right before the 4th of July, about around the 29th of June, something like that.
Because I'm, just to let everybody know on the board, because I'm doing some modeling between a 0.17 millage rate and a 0.16. So I did 0.17. It'll take down, it'll basically reduce taxes to citizens by about $453,000 based on this number.
Okay.
Which I would rather see, and I've already told Dr. Shu, that I would like to see a business, even though it's just a line item right now in the budget
Sure.
of $800,000 for that storage facility. I'd rather see a business case that tells me what, can we do something with less? Because that is,
Sure.
first of all, it's going to increase our property insurance rate because you're building a 4,000 square foot building. So property insurance is going to go up. Maintenance costs are going to go up. So it's not just 800,000.
No, you're right, yeah. I did get a quote from Matt Baker on that.
Yeah, if you can get him to give us some numbers.
He did give me a number on that.
And then the other thing I would like for the next time we look at the budget is if you can, once we get the actual tax base, is to do some models at
Different.
0.18, 0.17, 0.16. I don't know if anybody else wanted to go any further than that.
You'll have a millage chart the next meeting. There'll be a millage chart that'll show all the different scenarios. This property tax base year, I think the percentage increase of the property isn't going to be as high as the other years, which were like 8-9%. But this year, we've got a lot more construction, so the tax base is getting larger of the amount of property values that are taxable just based on the building, the increased in, but the percentage-wise, we're not sure what that is yet, but I don't think it's going to be as high as the last 2-3 years.
And honestly, the reason it's not just the 800,000 for storage facility is we have been in construction mode. It would be nice to settle down, complete all these projects, see what the costs are going to be before we start another project. And we're still trying to figure out,
Where
we're
we're
trying
at.
to finish the education center. We now have a drainage issue that we definitely have to fix. So it would be nice to take a pause. It doesn't, one year delay in putting $800,000 in a budget for a storage facility is not gonna kill us.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think it's fine, I agree, yeah. But that's why we have go to reserve by end of September, but they will have to budget, look at it, what's the plan for, what's the reserve for.
I would rather
Not
see
for-
citizens say they're giving us back money than they're taking the money and spending it because they have it. I mean, just because we have money doesn't mean that we have to spend it. We need to be judicious in how we spend the money. I need to see, personally for me, and I'm only talking for myself on the board, I would like to see a business case that says why we need to build an 800,000 storage facility that I initially was told was gonna be a shed, and now it's a 4,000 square foot building. So I would like to know what the business case is
Sure.
behind that, because otherwise I'm being irresponsible and even allowing $800,000 to be put in the budget as a placeholder.
basically, A and I are more or less compilers. We get data from the different departments and they rationalize, and then we put it in based on what the different departmental heads, you know, when you're talking the science operations. I mean, there are some numbers that we actually forecast,
But,
like personnel,
I-
but then when it comes to the bigger projects, we don't
But as-
decide what.
But as finance, don't you require that be a business case or something behind? I mean, I've never seen any finance department run where somebody can just put $800,000 as an earmark.
We do have staff meetings and there's discussion.
Yeah, I just think the board needs to know more about what it is that we're trying to accomplish and whether we need to, 800,000 used towards a building that I still don't know what we're gonna put in there, versus returning some monies back to citizens in a form of a millage rate decrease, because we know that the county's still
Sure.
growing, so our revenues are gonna continue to grow.
On that particular item, we put it in there because it was tabled. It was never denied that we were not going to do it at all.
I'm not saying that we're not doing it. I'm
Oh,
just saying
yeah.
that can we scope it down a little bit
Sure,
more?
we just put it in because it was tabled, and that's still for discussion, whether you guys decide you want to do it.
So that's my 2 cents.
Sure.
If you can give me some models of different millage rates, and then, reconsider that 800, because it actually, if you look at the impact on the budget versus last year, if you look at the total income loss, we went from a negative 118,000 last year to 1.1 million this year, in the new year, because of that 800,000.
We'll give you a whole chart, which will have all the different millage scenarios.
Yeah.
So that'll give you, you'll see what the difference is when you choose them.
I appreciate
The
it.
rollback rate is really important because that's the inverse relationship between
Yeah.
what the taxable values go up versus what the prior.
What's
you'll
the
s-
date you're getting that,
I'm sorry?
When's the date that we get July what, the
It's
beginning of
about,
July?
it used to be right before the 4th, now they're getting it pretty close. It's about maybe June 29th, 28th is probably about a good date. It seems like it's been coming in right at the end of June because they want to beat the 4th of July. So it always comes in right about the end of June.
Okay, on vacation.
I heard June 28th,
Yeah,
the email to us Friday.
yeah.
I asked the property appraiser, June 28th, distribute.
And they have a new method, there's a new trim system that actually A's been really good at mastering it. But for Dr. Shu and I, there's mystical ways they give us this data. Now they have yet a new method, which is the Oasis trim system. So I guess we're gonna get something in the Oasis instead of just. Okay. So we'll have the data for you.
Yeah,
That's all.
currently revenue, we based on our last year property value, taxable value.
Okay.
I heard about 5 to 8% increase next year.
Yeah.
Then we get this one, we give you detail.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions? No. Mr. Smith, tell us about it. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see, I'm sorry.
So for our budgeting, one of the things that Ms. Myers has touched on every meeting so far has been that she's been spending a significant amount of time on so how is that adding up financially? Like,
So my monthly invoices to you have been between $4,000 and $5,000. So I
And the
don't know that
normal
that's-
invoice is supposed to be 3,600, so we're having like an additional $1,000 of extra stuff we're having to do.
Extra
Uh,
minute,
there-
which I think it's done though.
There's been a lot of research, a lot of opinions. I've been sent a lot of correspondence to review, a lot of documents to review, just a handful of agreements and contracts for the director. But yes, I've been reviewing your policies and AGO opinions, trying to respond to the questions that have been given me. I
Well,
didn't realize
so-
there was a cap.
Yeah, I think
Well,
they-
do we need to raise the amount in our budget?
Yeah, we increase.
Or do we need to make a policy that,
If you have only budgeted 3,600, you are going to bust that budget this year. I don't know if things will relax or not going forward. Now that if the DVEC has been put to bed, maybe things will quiet down and it will average out by the end of the year. I really can't forecast. I don't know you well enough. I can't forecast what might come up.
well, so maybe the board, if you guys want to think about that, if we need to add money, because that's a lot extra money. And then,
I mean, you can't legally, technically, you can't limit a board to not have asked questions. Legally,
Right.
that's malfeasance to say we
well,
can't
we
ask
signed a
questions.
contract for
But we-
1 hour a month.
Yeah, but if there's questions, legal questions that need to be clarified, you can't not.
The contract didn't limit 1 hour a month. Your existing board policies say that
Yeah.
attorney contact shall be limited to 1 hour a month.
Yeah.
But we've been going over.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
has been exceeded every month, partly because I'm unfamiliar with, I have to look through Wayne's files to get the answer. Has been a lot of that time is getting familiar with what's already been done here.
So how familiar do you feel?
I feel, at this point, I feel real solid on your policies.
Okay, I just want to be prepared for next year. That's-
Yes.
So something that is also missing on our employees page is we do not have an assistant pilot. So if Dana, if you could come up for a second on that. It's on number 5, the second page on number 5.
Okay.
So we don't have any space in here, so you're one man, I know you're a superhero to me, but we have to get you some help. What kind of
We're
budget
getting there.
do we need
If I could
for-
offer my 2 cents on the current status of aviation operations across the board, this is from, Maine to California. The shortage of aircraft mechanics, aircraft A&P, plus IAs, and the shortage of helicopter pilots in general is not just here. Okay, we are trying to grow a pilot, and I've got Morgan in training. We have taken steps to get him ready to go over the course of the next 6 to 8 months.
Are we
if that's
talking about
fair.
Mr. Morgan?
Morgan Duet. He's been here for a long time. He's a local resident. He went on his own to earn his fixed wing flight ticket last week, Tuesday, I believe it was. He just passed his FAA ground helicopter exam, and the flight training is kind of ongoing. I feel very comfortable that he should be a private pilot rotorcraft instrument rated guy by the end of the year. So he'll have a fixed wing ticket, he'll have instruments, he'll have private pilot rotorcraft and instruments, and we start developing his time to get him up to the commercial rotorcraft pilot standards. This takes a little time.
What do you think? Like 2 years, 5 years?
That's hard to say. Very comfortably next year. We fly quite a bit. The more I can get him in the cockpit, the more we can get him up there. He's still going to be a very low time pilot. I can offer you, if you published a job opening for a pilot and you put 206 qualified, 100 hours of spray time, 1,000 hours of turbine, 1,500 hours total, you're going to have to look at the salary. Because you're going to offer $125,000, you're going to have 0 applicants. Because if they have those qualifications, they go where they're getting $150,000 a year. The pilots that are available are typically Robinson-rated pilots, 1,600 hours. They have no turbine time, they have no goggle time, they have no spray time, and they're starting at $75,000, $85,000 a year in mosquito control. And they're on a 2 or 3 year training program. to get them qualified in the aircraft, qualified under goggles, qualified low-level spraying. They're not going to be allowed to spray by themselves for a long time.
So what you're saying, your issue is not that we can't get you help, it's that the population out there is very limited.
In my opinion,
So you have
yes,
to
ma'am.
train the person.
Correct. So instead of begging for a pilot and saying, hey, we need a pilot, we're going to grow one. And he took the initiative. He put $14,000 of his own money into earning his fixed-wing ticket. It's much easier to get a rotary wing ticket if you have a fixed-wing ticket.
Well, if we're talking about having them ready to fly, I guess, with you, he could probably fly alone just with you, but he couldn't spray by the end of the year? Is that what
No,
you're saying?
no, absolutely not.
So what about by next September?
If I can get him his rotorcraft private pilot, his instrument rotorcraft, all helicopter specific, by next year he'll have 200 hours of low-level spraying. I would absolutely cut him loose to go spray a larvicide mission. If we start adding NVGs in goggle training, and he gets 4 or 5 hours of goggle training, 100 hours, I would consider him competent. You know, but that takes time.
Well, what I'm saying is that going to be done, do you think, before September of next year?
I'd like to say yes.
Because if so, then we need to budget
yeah, she's
for
building
him
it.
to get promoted, and then we're gonna have to pay him more, so we need to get that ready in our budget. So maybe you could think of a number to come and talk to us, and then we can put it on there kind of,
She's just saying.
if it
that-
happens, it
she's just
happens,
saying
if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Absolutely
But
have
then-
discussed this with
But
Dr. Shea.
have it built in, so
Yeah.
we don't have any money to
Slide.
pay him, so. And are we paying for any of his classes that he's taking?
Some of the training, yes, we've budgeted for the instrument training for starting in October. I believe that should be completed by December. And I have to be very careful because when you start switching aircraft, we make him jack of all trades, master of none. We're looking at how inexpensively we can get him to the point where he is comfortable, where he's competent, where he's positive to the mission that we do here, and when can he be cut loose?
Okay, and I have a question then for you. Since we're paying for some of that training,
Mhm.
are we going to,
We incur
Protect
we
ourselves?
incur a one year obligation per
okay,
class.
so there is an obligation there?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that we don't lose them to somebody else.
Well, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you don't want to lose them to somewhere else. You can't find anybody
Yeah.
else. You don't want him to get robbed to
Yeah.
another one. But every time there's a significant amount, for example, when we sent Ralph to Rolls-Royce school, it was 1 week. He picked up a year obligation.
Okay.
We sent him to Bell School. He picked up a 1 year obligation. And then there's all kinds of policy rules that we follow with that. But I have them sign stuff before they go.
Okay.
We don't just kick money in.
Also, he's he'll get a instruction, pilot instruction license and so on.
I'm
I'm gonna
working
cross
on
it
that
out.
myself.
Okay.
If I can do the
Yeah,
instruction, that's going to cut the cost way down.
Sure.
Every time the helicopter goes up for a mission, I stick him in the right seat and we go, and I can sign his logbook. Then we send him off to another instructor pilot that would evaluate him. Is he competent to have an FAA license? And that's when he comes back.
And is that, should we be compensating you for this? Because that's something that we would have to pay for to do somewhere else?
It's kind of the next step in aviation. My particular background is maintenance. Normal civilian helicopter pilots start out as a private pilot, commercial pilot, and they get a certified flight instructor ticket. For the Army, when I went in the Army, I tracked maintenance. So we had instructor pilots, we had maintenance pilots, we had safety guys. I went maintenance. You can't get that not in the military, but you can get a flight instructor's ticket as a civilian. I'm working on that. I'm also doing exams and classes and working with an instructor pilot in Jacksonville. The sooner I get that picked up, the sooner he gets hacked off on. It's a crazy little wave, but we're working like a duck.
And
Feet
then-
are going.
Lastly, for the aerial program, I mean, you all knock it out of the park. So how's the budget look for you? Have you looked over everything in here that has to do with that, and you're comfortable with it?
We have squeezed this budget, and I promised you a few years ago when I first started, I said, give me a little bit of time and we'll get this tweaked. I have it down to, I was with Scott the other day saying, this is what I think I've got left for this year. Most of my numbers are coming down because now we have 3 years of history. Do we need that? No, let's cut that down. I think I proposed not capital gains, like there's a few pieces that need to be looked at, but I think we're dropped to
Or like
around
earth
100,000.
buying. I mean,
Exactly.
that's one of the
Our
best
oil,
things
our
we can
grease,
have is
our
all
little
this kind of
PLL,
stuff.
everything that we need to do when we do the annuals on these aircraft is pretty covered.
And what about buying the surplus, parts to have? Do you have a budget set aside just for that in your budget?
That program's all
or-
done. When the Army got
It's
rid of the
done?
planes, they got rid of the stuff. We Sanford and Sonned everything we could get our hands on, and I get to brag on that here in just a second. That's step number 2.
Okay.
But I want you to be very comfortable that we're diligently looking forward, and instead of saying, well, there's no pilots out there, we have to do something. That's part of the Whirly Girls program that we set up a scholarship for. So next summer, we're gonna try and do 2. So if there's people that have rotorcraft tickets and they wanna come see what agricultural spraying's about, mosquito control spraying's about, we'll put them up in the barracks, we'll fly them for 4 days. It doesn't cost the AMCD anything. They would be a follow-on mission with what we're already doing, but it exposes them. You want more pilots, you have to do something. So we're growing one in-house, and we're trying to do, for society with a program that I'm familiar with.
Now can you talk to us about helicopter repair?
All right, this is uncomfortable and very comfortable all in the same whack. If I can
Yes, yes.
If I can back up just a couple of years ago, when we bought the 2 aircraft from the Army, we got them at a very discounted price, $180,000 a year. I do remember asking for another $200,000 to buy pieces and parts, and I was very selective in what I bought. The Army was trying to recoup 10% on their investment, and we bought a spare engine ready to bolt in for $37,000. That engine is sat in the cupboard. Ironically, when we finished up 569's annual this year, 3 weeks ago, we pushed it out, we tried to start it, and an oil seal in the engine let go, blew smoke. The engine has to come out. In 8 days, we had that engine out of the closet, all the stuff that needed to go on it back in. And 569 is not only through the maintenance test flight, the annual's complete, but she's calibrated as of yesterday. So we're dive-room ready right now. That's a 2-week, I can't even brag on the guys on how well that goes. We've got Jacksonville that was down for 8 months with an engine. Chatham County was down for 18 months for an engine. I think this is the 3rd year, to my knowledge, currently Brevard County has 2 helicopters. This is the 3rd year neither one of them has flown. So by purchasing that engine, on you guys trusting me to pick out the right pieces and parts, we were down for 2 weeks extra. So now the engine that is broken has to go somewhere to be repaired. Normally, a seal would be very, very cheap, but unfortunately, the FAA has said, if in fact your engine goes to an engine shop and this particular piece, being the turbine, comes apart, if you have this part number wheel, you must replace it at that time. Okay, I was guessing the wheel was about $26,000. Fortunately, the wheel is still on for half price. There are 3 places the engine can go. Pennsylvania to Essential Turbines, they refuse to bid. They're very busy. The second place is in Louisiana, and the third place is in Arizona, Heroes. So what we've asked is for them to take our engine in entirety, take it out there, disassemble it, take the turbine apart, replace the wheel, replace the broken seal, put it back together, put it on a bench, run it up, and send it back to us. I was guessing this was going to be around $50,000. That was shooting from the hip in a couple of calls. When we did the sealed bid, because I thought it was going to exceed $35,000, 2 came in, one at 26, one at 22. I did a follow-on call to Heroes, and I said, hey, you guys, you didn't put reworking a piece in there. He said, that might be $4 or $5 grand if it needs to be reworked. I guarantee you it needs to be reworked. But even with another couple $1,000s, they're still cheaper than Louisiana. Right. So Arrow in Louisiana has done great work for us. I love them to death. They do phenomenal work on rotors and tail rotors and engines. We've had Heroes out in Arizona do phenomenal work. Either one would be fine. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. They're both very, very phenomenal shops. But the bids we're at is in the $20,000 range. Now, this is not money I budgeted for. I didn't expect a 300-hour engine to let loose of a seal and not be able to run. So that was very uncomfortable for me to be briefing. I was very happy we had a spare, and it's in and it's rolling. But now we need to get that engine that's broken repaired.
So this would put Heroes bid up to 26,000.
Give or take. Yes, ma'am.
So
They're still
26
below.
versus 28.
Correct. They're still a little cheaper than Arrow down in Louisiana. But
Right.
until they break it open, they're not going to know. There will be hidden things in there. And I know when they replace that number 3 wheel, there's 2 fuel nozzles in there. and the tolerances are in the 100,000s. They're gonna have to rework those nozzles. Now, the one thing that was pointed out to me is it's written in the bid for Heroes, on the last page, there was warranty offered, and that's install warranty. That's not the engine sitting in the shop waiting to go on an aircraft. So if we put that engine in 442 in 2 years, that's when the warranty starts. Now, Aero, I know Aero offers warranty. Unfortunately, they didn't write it in there, so it's nothing that we could contractually hold them to.
So I have a question. So inspection, so do we have to get FAA inspection of the turbine?
They are an FAA
So they-
145 station.
So-
They are Rolls-Royce authorized, and they have a bench where they can hook the engine up to it and run it.
So
There's-
once they install, we're
Once they're done and they say it passed the vibe and the back pressure, they'll send it back and we'll be ready to bolt it in the next time an engine's needed.
all right.
Commissioner Beck.
Just for the commissioners, on the Heroes page, I think it's like the second to last one in their bid, it shows, it's, new parts have a 2-year warranty or 1,000 hours. And is 1,000 hours, how much, is that about 2 years? Or you think
100
we use it more
hours
than
a
that?
year, 100 hours a year on these airframes would be 10 years.
Okay,
So we've got probably 500 hours left on the turbine in 442 before it has to be completely overhauled. That's going to be $120,000, give or take, on today's numbers. But all the rest of this stuff I already have.
okay. And then the labor is, warranted for 1 year for 500, hours. They also come in $2,000 cheaper, and
Do we ship it to them?
We do, ground. It's about $400 or $500.
Okay.
so I will make a motion that we let Mr. Smith send the bid to Heroes. I mean, it seemed like you were good with either one, and they both
Absolutely.
produce good quality, because this one has warranty.
I've raved
Almost
over,
either
I've
one.
raved over both of their maintenance. I called down there and I explained something about a tail rotor hub overhaul. In 30 years, I've never put a tail rotor on and had it come in tracked and balanced in the first run. And that one spun true on the first run. I called down there very loud. She's like, so what do I do? So I know this is a good thing. You know, it's never happened. So the guys at Arrow are phenomenal.
So, quick question, because I just noticed the one Arrow, I just want to make sure we don't have a hidden thing with Heroes.
Mhm.
Arrow put at the bottom of there, this is the preliminary estimate only subject to change depending on what is found upon tear down.
Correct.
So with Heroes, is this quote solid?
No,
Okay.
none of these quotes are
Okay.
solid. If they pull that turbine apart and they find damage to the number 4 wheel, they're gonna have to replace it.
Okay, so, if
We've asked them to give me a price on a seal
okay,
and a number 3 turbine wheel. And to put it together, put it on the bench, run it up, make sure it passes vibration, make sure it passes back pressure. Once they've done that, they're good to go. If they pull the turbine apart and they find something broken, they're gonna call and say, hey, your number 3 wheel is replaced and good to go, but your number 2 wheel is shot. I don't think that's gonna be the
Okay.
case, because there's only 300 hours on that engine, and I think there's 900 on that turbine total.
So
And the
I'll
turbines are
add
good for
to
3,500.
my motion
Yeah.
to include any additional parts. Mr. Smith can make the decision and order them or continue the work.
Anything over
I mean,
1,500 has to
technically,
go
this
to
is
him
under
anyway.
okay,
35
so,
anyways.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
just, so subject to like, it's the procurement.
The
so I mean,
policy, correct.
Policy, okay.
Now, if it comes back at $80,000, we're gonna have to do something different.
Right.
Well, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, I just want to make sure we have a cap on anything subject. I don't want to end up
Well,
with.
he has a purchasing cap anyway.
No, I know, I just want to make sure, because you're gonna have to make the determination, is it better,
Does
you know,
this work?
Is the return on investment better, like if I end up with a $120,000 bill, is it better to get a brand new turbine than just to continue going down this road? Just want to make sure that you come back to us.
I can do however you would like.
If it gets really sad.
You're looking at a sealed bid based on me guessing a
Yeah, yeah,
$50,000 cost,
yeah,
and we're in
I
the
know.
20s.
Yes, no, I
Yeah.
like that, just, if they say it's 80.
That
was
wouldn't
gonna-
surprise me.
yeah.
I expected $120,000 on a compressor overhaul, and it came in at 83.
Okay,
So that's good. But these are parts that are long hour parts, unless something goes wrong.
yeah.
And the last one I thought would go would be 569.
Okay, so we
Okay.
have a,
So we have a motion to accept the Heroes bid with the underlying of if it exceeds the purchase and price, then Dana will bring it back to us for approval.
Mm-hmm.
And the price being the 35 cap?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so over
sense.
$35,000 we
Yes.
represent. Now, that's gonna present problems because what I asked for in this bid was for them to be able to complete the work, us pay them, and at least be in the mail by the end of this particular year.
But will they, okay, so maybe to modify that, but if they call you
Mhm.
and they say, we opened this thing up, and I'm sorry, Dana, but that 22,000 that I told you about is really gonna be like,
85.
I mean.
It won't be that, but
some-
if it exceeds
I mean, like, Let's
35,000,
just make assumption that it exceeds that 35,000. We need to be able to, Amy, I don't know how to handle it. I
Turn
mean.
it
and see, what I'll have to do is release them out of the obligation to have it back to us by
Help here?
the first, second week in October.
Okay.
So you have competitively bid it. So under your procurement policies, you're in good shape. I think the issue is whether or not you need a contract. It's the 35 is what triggers a
Yeah.
contract, right?
Right.
Because otherwise you've checked all the other boxes.
Right.
You've got commissioner approval. So you can either require, if he thinks his real estimate is going to be closer to 80,000 and you're comfortable with that, authorize a not to exceed 80,000, and to the extent you need a contract to memorialize exactly what's being done, he has the purchasing authority to enter that contract, and she knows she needs to sign it.
Okay. What do you think is comfortable?
I think what'll
Is it
happen
80
is
or
once
50 or
once
what?
once I get the engine to them, they pull it apart. We know we're getting half off on the wheel. We know what the labor's going to be, and we know what the kit is for the little pieces and parts they have. If they come back with additional damage, they're going to send a one piece of paper. They'll email me, and they'll say, "Hey, here's the total cost. This is our estimate now that we've taken it apart." Normally, I sign that, scan it in, and send it back. But if it exceeds what they've bid, what's the number above what they've bid where you
What do
need
you-
to be?
what do you think?
I
What do
mean,
you-
like, what would be the
10
the top that you would-
10 grand over that would be
then you-
excessive in my
Okay, and then
opinion.
you wouldn't
So
feel comfortable.
let's say 30, well, that's 35,000, and then.
They're still gonna be under 35,000,
Because
but
if
we're gonna do
it's,
something.
right now, it's at 26,
Okay,
so
let's-
that gives them 10,000 in
okay, and
extra
that's-
parts, and if it's more than that, you'll come to us.
Let's-
So if it's $35,000 or less, I'll sign the
Yeah.
sheet, I'll have Dr. Shu sign the sheet, we'll
Put
send
that
it back
in
to
there.
them.
Yeah,
If it's
that
not,
works.
Not to
we
exceed.
will adjust to the current price, but we will have to send them a note saying no longer is it required to be back this calendar year, or October 1st. Because I said, look, we need to pay for it by about the 20th of September, we can
Right.
wire it, and if it's in the mail by the first or second week of October, we're okay, and Ms. Klein has given me that leeway
Okay.
when she asks for where stuff is. But I don't want it sitting in their shop for the next 2 years.
So let's put the cap at 35, not to exceed 35.
Okay.
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 All right, so we have a-
Modify your motion.
So you made a motion to,
Accept
Not to exceed.
Hero's bid and not to exceed a total price of 35,000.
okay,
And if it does, then you'll bring it back to the board, which
Absolutely.
that's the purchase price anyway. So do we want to make it 40 and then he doesn't need to bring it to the board?
no.
35
No,
is fine.
30.
The sensitivity on money lately, I would rather everybody hear it from me than ask about it once it's on its way back. I think I do a pretty good job of chatting with the boss, letting him know what's going on.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am, thank you.
All right, Dr. Shu.
Thank you. Yeah, first, so far still dry, and the rain seems to come in soon, the hurricane season. This year a little bit different with the last few years. Last few years also started June 1st, we got a lot of rain. But this year still dry. But I saw the news that surveyor of wildfire Parker and somewhere seems dry here. But we have more calling complaint about bad images, also air loss and carbon images. Carbon images from a lake, from a river side, dry season that coming. It's a little bit different. Yeah, I think that I joined May 23rd. I fly back to DC, joined the CDC and the Division of Vector-Borne Disease, around the table for National Vector Control Strategy. They have invited 65 people, and we are one of the stockholder discussion about what's should the next couple of years, most funding. So that's other things that our seasonal employees and our intern students I started May 1st. So the average seasons, you can see lots of new faces. And some is for laboratory, some is for education, and different intern. We have 7 high school intern, and include a couple of volunteers for IT, and 4 from individual academic career. It's every year they have 4 set here, all the other high school students, or the UNI, and University of South Florida, so the intern coming. That's a basic situation. You see there's a hello, and there's also problems. Maybe there will be future one who can then serve as a mosquito control. So we have an opportunity, give their training, and we use some industry grant funding to pay the class for $15 and the college for $18.30. So that's basic. Okay, thank you. Yeah, just mention about again, when you need anything, see the budget here, we still open anytime, let me know, so we can start update and, for July 11th board meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Myers.
Just a couple of things to report. I did meet with, I spent a lot of time this month working with staff on the DVAC resolution and meeting with the auditor and staff regarding the resolution and the audit and the process that was used there. I responded to inquiries about the legal sufficiency of the minutes and how to supplement the agenda. And I spoke several times with the chair about meeting protocols and Robert's Rules of Procedure.
Thank you.
Were there any updates on the King Charles clause?
So I did look into it. I apologize for not getting back to you. The circumstances in which you can use it are very limited, and I'm not sure that they apply or they would be applicable to the district right now. There are a couple circumstances in which they might. If you need to transfer property to someone else, there's a way to invoke the King Charles clause to sort of keep some fingers in it during the lifetime and perpetuate the term. I just don't know that there are any circumstances presently before you where you could use it. But I did look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner LeBlanc.
Okay, I just want to thank the staff for all their hard work.
Commissioner
I'd like to say I'm so glad to be associated with such a great group of people.
What a nice thing to say. Commissioner Gleason.
Oh, one of the things, thank you again for Whitney and Shu and
Everybody.
that met with me and try to get to this resolution. One thing that we did touch upon in that meeting was the audit. If you recall, last month, I think it was last month, when I asked, when they presented the audit, I said if there was, if there were no contracts, because I think Ms. Klein was under the impression that we continue Compass contracts. Would the audit need to be amended? And she did say, and these folks were in the room when she said that she misspoke, and that there should not be a requirement for a resubmission or an amendment to the audit. So I asked Rudy to please get that in writing. I know she's been tied up and then she had a medical issue, but I would like to have that for the district's minutes, because I just want to make sure boards change and comments are made, and I don't want somebody looking at those minutes and then not have something else contemporaneously saying that the auditor did say in a meeting with us that she had misspoken. So I just want to make sure that that's documented for the record. Other than that, I just want to let the board know it's been a hard 6 months, and I'm glad that at least the Education Center resolution is behind us, because it has equally been very hard on me.
I know.
So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Becker.
Next week is Mosquito Control Awareness Week, so make sure you let all your friends, family, neighbors, and community members know about the importance of what we do, why we do it, and how they could put in a service request. We're also going to be having our open house, and we'll have our educational meeting next week to finalize everything for that. as far as our Florida Mosquito Control Association conference this year, the board and the commissioners board have decided that we're canceling Commissioners Day. When they planned the dates, they didn't really look at them, and our Commissioners Day was supposed to be on Election Day. So we didn't think anybody was gonna really show up in Orlando for that. So we've decided to cancel it, and then we're gonna try to add more things on top of the DOD course next year to kind of make up for it, and give us a good presentation. We'll be sending out emails to all the commissioners to let them know. Commissioners can still attend if they choose, but there will not be a separate Commissioners Day.
Okay.
And then I got a couple phone calls this week from other commissioners that there's a new rumor going around that we are using federal grant monies to build the education center and to pay people, and we're nervous because we're mishandling that. And just so everyone knows, that's not anything that's happening. We sold our properties, we used our own money to build this education center that wasn't done with grants or federal money, so I don't know where that has come from. But I just wanted you all to be aware of that because that's the newest rumor for the week. And then, the interns. I've had a couple parents that want their kids to be interns, and I reached out to Dr. Qualls, and she was like, we're full. So our internship program, and one was high school, the other one was college. So, I mean, our program has really gotten around in the academic world, and people, so thank you, Dr. Qualls, for heading that up.
It was more like, we're full at the moment, but continue, get them to fill out an application and we'll, consider, but at the moment, yes, I think we're at capacity. I think Stephen would agree with me.
I mean, we
on
were
that.
begging interns years ago, and now we're like, sorry, we're full. So it just shows the wonderful job that you all have been doing. So thank you very much.
Volunteers at the center, education center.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, we need,
Maybe they can do that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, the meeting is adjourned.